Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. This is the 2026 Group Insurance Rollout Call with our friends at American Specialty. I'm Kevin Deckinga, the League's Director of Membership and Development. I'm joined tonight by Gina Doyle, Jordan Boykel, and Renee Watterson, all with American Specialty, our partners in providing this group insurance program for decades. And it's so great to work with our friends at American Specialty. I'm excited to dive in like we do every year. So let's get started with just a few notes, some light housekeeping, if you will. As I mentioned to several of you, the call is recorded and the recording will be sent around to everyone. So even those friends of ours that registered but weren't able to attend, they're all able to, they'll be sent the recording. Check our website for slides and recording anytime. I should have this recording posted in the next day or two. We ask that you save your questions for the end. And when you do ask questions, try to make general questions about the program. I know it's really tempting to ask, is this covered? Here's a hypothetical, but let's try to keep it firm on the ground. And at the end, if we don't get to your question, we apologize, but send specific event questions to jboykel@americanspecialty.com. And I'm going to send around a link in the chat to our insurance page. We've created a new FAQ, I should say. Our friends at American Specialty have created it. Thanks, Renee. It's a good overview of the program in total, so definitely consult that. Thank you so much to our member clubs and advocacy organizations, 400 member advocacy groups, 500 clubs. All members are invited to buy into our group insurance policy. If you're not sure about your membership status, check out bikeleague.org/renew. You can enter any number of parameters in there and see if your org is currently a member. And of course, contact me with any questions at kevin@bikeleague.org. Okay, so your membership with the League is so much more than the insurance program. It fuels everything that we do. The League truly is a league of organizations. So your support helps our federal advocacy work. We're the voice of bicyclists in Washington. We're working with Congress to hopefully expand, but in many times help protect funding for biking and walking projects. We're building a coalition of health, environmental safety orgs, getting everyone on board around bicycling. And we're the researchers, the data go-to for making the case for more bicycling in your community. Many of you are joining tonight from bicycle-friendly communities, or you're employed by bicycle-friendly businesses. We work with cities, towns, businesses, universities all over the country to make their places better for bicycling. And we're training the next generation of advocates, town to town, to make the case. I know so many of our club members are league cycling instructors. Our LCI program continues to grow. We recently certified, I believe, our 7,500th LCI over the course of the program, going back decades. And those LCIs reach tens of thousands of adults each year with the confidence and know-how to make bicycling a part of their everyday life. Finally, our flagship program is the National Bike Summit. It's coming up in just 9 weeks. And so I'm going to make a plug. Please join us for the National Bike Summit. It's March 24th to 26th. It is so much fun. It is the go-to bike advocacy event of the year. It is in Washington. Early bird pricing ends on the 30th. And yes, as member clubs and member orgs, you get a discount for registering. Something that is totally free, though, is please nominate your club or group for our annual awards. Every year we award Club of the Year and Org of the Year, and I'll put that link in the chat as well. So Tell us about what your club, what your org is doing to make biking better. We really want to hear it, and we want to recognize the good work that you do. Many of you checked out the club resource guide last year that we put together with SRAM. It continues to grow and develop. It's also on our website, bikeleague.org. It's under the Take Action site. It's not behind a paywall. It's not logging in. It is totally free for everyone. So please check that out. And if you have examples of volunteer training or board bylaws, feel free to share that with me. I'm always eager to add more resources onto the guide. And then finally, the league's trying to travel a little bit more this year. So if you have a ride, a rally, an annual meeting, and you want to align your group with the good work that we're doing here at the national level, let me know. Myself, and our executive director, Bill Nesper, are looking for event opportunities this year. And we'd love to visit your club or go on a ride with you. Why not? Contact me, kevin@bikeleague.org. I think that's about it for me. So I will hand off the reins here to Gina, and I'll put this slide back up at the end too, if we've got a minute. This is all of our emails. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to stop share and let Gina take it from here.
Okay, so are you seeing my screen, Kevin?
Mhm.
Very good. I just need to reorganize the layout here of this so that I can not get distracted by the presentation. Okay. Thank you, as always, Kevin, for hosting the webinar. We get a lot of questions and feedback from the webinar once it's over. And I'm always appreciative of all of the clubs who join and for our partnership. You had mentioned earlier that we've worked together, American Specialty and the League of American Bicyclists, Wheelmen, for 34 years. So it's a relationship that we highly value in our company. And it's one that, and we'll talk about it here in a minute when we get into the insurance program, that we believe really benefits the club insurance program as well. One of the cool things I think about the partnership is just the resources that are available to the clubs. So always the clubs have access to you and all of your staff, which is an amazing team. And I encourage you to, as Kevin said, reach out to them. And I'm excited. I'm going to see if I can get Kevin and Bill to come to American Specialty. I think it sounds great. The other resource that we have, and Kevin alluded to this, is the insurance and risk management platform. The website address is here. That's where once the insurance program is live for 2026, you will go to either get a quote or enroll in the insurance program. But there's also a lot of additional risk management recommendations and tools there for the clubs to use, and has been built over the years and evolved to hopefully share resources that are helpful for the clubs. We do have one really milestone, important update when we talk about the American Specialty teammates. I don't know if I said this at the beginning. My name is Gina Doyle. If I didn't, I apologize. I have been at American Specialty for 25 years and have worked with the league for a very, very long time. My colleague here, Renee Watterson, who most of you know, she's sitting behind me. We did try to set up in our conference room tonight, but had some technical difficulties. So we ended up back in my office, and therefore we're not all sitting so close together, unfortunately. But Renee, after 30 years at American Specialty, or 30 plus years at American Specialty, has decided to retire from full-time status at American Specialty. So she is still here with us. She officially retired on January 2nd. And so I've changed the way I describe that, from officially retired to officially retired from full-time status, because we're so thankful to have Renee still here with us. And so she's working on a very part-time basis. And Jordan Boykel, who Kevin had mentioned earlier today, who's also back here, joined American Specialty and has been working alongside Renee, has 10 plus years of insurance experience and has really hit the ground running, working alongside Renee and getting up to speed on the league's not only insurance program, but a lot of the questions and tools and resources that we come together as a group and offer. So wanted to update everybody on that, because you will see at the end of the presentation, we are going to ask, and you'll see this in the brochure as well, that if you have questions or either about the insurance program or about the enrollment process, we're going to have you send those questions to Jordan. And while you might hear back from Renee, because she's still going to be here and she's assisting, and this ends up being a really busy time for our team when the league renews, and it's one that we're excited about always. But as just to kind of cut down on duplicate measures, we'll just have everything go to Jordan in the beginning. And like I said, you'll hear back from Jordan or Renee. Okay, so we always like to spend just a few minutes talking about why the league insurance program, right? I'm kind of like when you fly an airline, we say, we know you have a lot of choices in, insurance, but why should the clubs consider the league insurance program? First and foremost, it's a league membership benefit that the league has put together for its members, and it's a customized insurance program to meet the needs of an individual club. So the customized insurance program includes general liability coverage and excess accident medical coverage. You'll hear me refer to both of those coverages throughout the presentation. And the best way to remember the difference between those two coverages, in my opinion, is general liability is the coverage that anybody who's ever asked you for a certificate of insurance, this is the coverage that they're most interested in. And it's also the coverage that's going to protect you and your board and your members if your club or your board is named in a lawsuit from a claim arising from a club activity. So a bodily injury claim. So think about a crash and somebody brings a suit against the club. This is the policy that's going to respond. And then the program also includes excess accident medical coverage. That coverage is more of a first party coverage. So in the event that we do have an incident at one of our events and someone's injured, this policy is designed to help offset the out-of-pocket medical expenses up to $10,000 that that individual might have. So think about deductibles and co-pays and things like that. In addition to having the customized insurance program, the clubs really get the benefit of that group purchasing power. So now you aren't going out on your own and saying, I need $1 million of general liability coverage. You're able to come together with the other clubs. The other thing that helps you with when we talk about a group policy is if you are a club who has had a liability lawsuit, or there's a situation that does result in a claim for you, and especially if it's a significant claim, a lot of times if you don't have that group purchasing power from the other clubs coming alongside you, an insurance company will not be able to continue to provide coverage. So that's another added, in my opinion, protection that you have when you participate in the league's insurance program. We take a lot of pride in being experienced in managing not only bicycle related claims, but those claims that our clubs have experienced over the years. And while we have many club rides or fundraiser rides that take place and we don't have any issues whatsoever, we do have our fair share of situations where something has gone wrong and whoever was injured points the finger at the league or the club. I apologize to the club, or maybe the lead rider, the ride leader. And so that experience is really helpful when we get into litigation. And then we also have, like we said, a kind of a library of risk management resources on the website, but we also have a risk management team here. So if you have really unique questions, we're able to pull them in and help evaluate the exposures and provide recommendations to you. When I talk about the insurance program, I'm going to be really separating the enrollment, if you will, into two categories. One is advocacy organization, and the second is bike club. So I recognize that for many of our organizations on this call, you certainly are doing advocacy work, right? You're out there. From an insurance perspective, the way the insurance policy defines advocacy organization is 26 or fewer club rides annually with an average of 50 or fewer riders for each ride. And then we define bike club as a club who has 27 or more club rides annually. So it's less about what the club is doing or the club's mission and more about the number of rides, if any, that you're having on an ongoing basis, not special events where a fee is charged for participation in the ride, but just your weekly rides. So that's the difference between, as we get into how the insurance program is structured and the rating for the insurance program is structured, that's the difference between the two categories. The first item that the first, I guess, piece of the policy that we wanted to talk about is the advocacy organization. So again, this is an organization that has 26 or fewer club or social rides with less than 50 average riders participating in each ride. So if you're an advocacy organization, you do not have any club rides, the insurance program provides liability only coverage. So again, it's the policy that's in force if, because of your advocacy work, someone is injured or allegedly injured and brings suit against your organization, this is the policy that would apply. That annual premium is $391. So that is just a base premium. There are options to add additional coverages. So as an example, maybe you offer education or bike refurbishment as part of your advocacy work. And if so, we'll get into that in a few slides and we'll talk about the premium affiliated with that. Those advocacy organizations with 26 or fewer club or social rides, but again, they do have rides, that base premium for the annual coverage is $487. So with that premium, you get not only the liability coverage that I just mentioned, but you also get the excess accident medical coverage that we talked about previously. Again, $10,000 per accident per member to help offset out-of-pocket medical expenses that might be incurred as a result of an accident that occurs during a club ride. Okay, if we get into the bike club premium, the premium for bike clubs is rated a little bit differently. The premium is determined by the number of members that you have within your club. We ask that you choose the annual membership at the peak of your club activities. So if you have 100 members, but in every July, you know that your membership increases to 300, we would ask that you use 300. We don't audit the membership number, so the number that you provide, we're trusting that is the number of members that you have at the peak of your club activities. So the member participant count rate is separated by tiers. So the first tier is 0 to 1,000 members, and if that is your club, the per member rate is just over $10 at $10.05. If you have membership between 1,001 and 2,000 members, the price goes down a little bit, again, with that kind of group purchasing power, and the per member rate is $8.59 per participant. Over 2,000, the per participant rate is $8.08 per member. The minimum premium is remaining at $450. And that is important to us because we know that we have we have organizations where, that 0 to 1,000, maybe you don't have enough members to get to that minimum premium. So we always try to keep the minimum premium as low as we can. So that, in our opinion, is a win there, that we didn't have any change in the minimum premium. Again, the optional business coverages, I think we'll talk about here in just a couple of slides. Special event premium. So we'll start with what is a special event. So the club's insurance program, or the league's insurance program for bike or clubs or advocacy organizations, is designed to provide coverage for your business operations. If you have what we consider a special event, which is a ride where you're charging a fee for individuals to participate in the ride, we consider that a special event. And we ask for you to report the number of participants of the special event. We are not asking you to report the number of members who participate in your special event. So the special event is based on the number of people who participate in the special event, where that fee is charged to participate in the event, minus the number of members that are participating, because you've already paid that per member rate for that individual for the year. So we're not asking you to pay it again just because that member is participating in one of your pay to ride events, if you will. So again, if you have 100 people participating in the ride where a fee is charged and 20 of them are members that were already contemplated when you signed up, here in the next couple of weeks, then you would only report 80 individuals participating in that special event. In order to secure coverage for a special event, because the policy does not automatically provide this coverage, you go back into the insurance platform that we're going to talk about here at the end, and there's a link to schedule your special event. You'll put the date and the name of the event, and then after the event, you'll go back in, you'll say exactly how many participants participated, and then there will be premium that you'll pay at that time. So the cost of the special event is exactly the same as it was in 2025. So no change in premium there. And I have to say that this is, in a market, and including an insurance market where, costs are increasing each year. It's kind of like the cost of milk or eggs, right? It just seems to keep going up. This is one of the first times in several years where we have not had a premium change. So we are excited to be able to deliver that the special event rate is going to be consistent with expiring. When you schedule a special event, you get both the liability coverage that we've talked about, as well as the excess accident medical coverage. Mountain biking special events have a slightly higher rate, and that is based solely on the insurance company's perception of mountain bike activities. And so I know that there's a lot of reports saying that mountain biking is safer than on road and not, but really it's that the insurance company looks at it and feels that it's a little bit higher risk than what we are doing with our club rides, and therefore there's a little bit of a higher premium. But that premium and rate is also going to be consistent with 2025 rates. So these are the elective coverages that the clubs have the ability to add on to their annual policy. The premium for these is a flat premium, a flat rate, and those rates and premiums are consistent with 2025. So no change in premium for these ancillary coverages either. Bike refurbishment. So if your club or your advocacy organization is offering bike refurbishment as part of your club activities, I would highly encourage you to secure the additional coverage under your policy for bike refurbishment. We had a request a couple of several years ago at this point where clubs were getting to the point where they could have leased office space or leased warehouse space that they were using maybe for bike refurbishment or storage. And the landlords of either the office or the warehouse were asking for proof of insurance for that exposure. So we were able to expand the insurance program to allow for clubs who have this exposure to purchase the coverage. We didn't want to automatically add it to everybody's policy because we know that not everybody has that exposure. So we wanted to be able to, if you have the exposure, you can consider the coverage expansion here under the policy. Education, obviously, we are huge fans of the clubs offering education because that ultimately not only increases the use of bicycles here in the U.S., but also hopefully does that in the safest way possible. So we have two categories of education. We have classroom only. So again, no on-bike activities. You're just in the classroom teaching. If you're using LCI to provide that education, your premium is going to be slightly lower than if you are not using LCIs. So again, that premium didn't change year over year, but this is the premium here, the $210 additional premium if you're using the LCIs to provide the education, $274 if you are not using LCIs and you're using other trained qualified individuals to offer your training. That is for classroom only education. So if you are a club who does classroom plus on-bike education, the premium is higher. The reason for that is obviously that the exposure for an injury during that education is higher. So there's exposure to not only the liability policy, but also we add the exposure to the accident medical policy so that if someone is injured, they receive that $10,000 benefit that's excess over any other valid and collectible insurance, but is really designed to help offset out-of-pocket medical expenses. If you are a club who offers mountain biking rides, your additional premium to add that kind of rider, if you will, onto the policy is just over $300. And so I always like to clarify that a mountain bike ride is what we would consider a mountain bike ride, right? It's not that we are, on a traditional club ride and then we go on a path that includes gravel and then back on the road. That wouldn't be considered, in my opinion, a mountain bike ride. So this would be a traditional mountain bike ride that would require you to have an additional coverage added to your policy. We also have a couple of coverage offerings that are not part of the enrollment process into the insurance program. There's a separate enrollment required. The first is directors and officers liability coverage. So we talked about the fact under the general liability policy that policy provides coverage to the organization, its volunteers, its members for third-party claims of bodily injury. So again, somebody gets injured and brings a suit against one of those individuals. But there's also the exposure of for those same groups, the organization, the members, the volunteers, and also your board members for alleged wrongful acts of the board. It could be something where there was an allegation that grant money was used not in compliance with how the grant was applied for what the grant was applied, and then, or it could be employment practices liability. So think about a club member or someone who wants to become a club member who for whatever reason, the club decides is not eligible to be a member of the club, and there's a discrimination type claim against the club. So it is a coverage that we highly encourage you to consider, to talk to your board about. And if you're interested in it, there's a separate enrollment process, and you can find that information also on the LAB insurance platform, if you will. Both the directors and officers liability and the enrollment process, or the enrollment link for enrolling in the 2026 insurance program, are currently not live. And that's intentional because we don't want you to go on and purchase coverage thinking, that you're doing the renewal when the coverage actually doesn't go into effect until February 1st. So more to come on that. But you can still go to the website and learn more about directors and officers liability coverage. Another coverage that is available as needed is non-owned and hired automobile liability coverage. So some clubs will purchase this coverage when they have or are using a lag vehicle for a ride. Also, if you're a club who does use automobiles to run errands on behalf of the club, whether that's your staff, if you have staff, your volunteers, your board, this is a coverage that we would recommend that you consider. Excess liability coverage. So in certain cases, you might run into a situation where an entity requires more than $1 million of liability coverage. And if that is the case, one way to satisfy that requirement is through an excess liability coverage policy. So we have an option under the league's insurance program where we have a excess policy of $1 million where the clubs can come together and share in that limit. Through the same carrier that we have with the general liability, coverage with. We do not, with that same carrier, have the ability to write a standalone policy. So if your board looks at your exposure and says, hey, I think we need $3 million of coverage, we would encourage you to, one, work with your local agent to see if they're able to provide that coverage. And if not, you can reach back out to us and we can see if we can find another carrier to provide that coverage for you. But it just won't be with the same carrier that we currently have the general liability policy with. Okay, so we often have questions, obviously, throughout the presentation. I know there's some coming in the chat feature. Kevin mentioned that we have a new FAQ. I would encourage you to look on the website at that FAQ. It is hopefully helpful. I know there's a lot to it, but you might be able to just do a quick find and search and look for a word that you're looking for. But we did want to go through a couple of the frequently asked questions that we often get during this presentation. So the first is, what is considered a covered activity? And that would be club meetings, like I said, fundraisers, other activities that meet the definition of a special event, where that fee is being charged, bike education courses, if that coverage is elected, club rides. If you're not sure whether or not it would be covered, always feel free to reach out to us. If you can't find the answer in the FAQ, we're always happy to answer those questions. A couple of things that we like to highlight for you that are not covered under the league's insurance program: racing. So we do have coverage. The policy does provide coverage for time trials. So if you're, racing against the clock, I guess, to get your timing, then that type of activity would be covered. But if it's a traditional racing event, it's not covered under this policy. That's not what the policy is designed to provide coverage for. For-profit tours, rentals or bike share programs, commercial bike or repair shops. So again, we can do bike refurbishment, but if you're running an actual repair shop, you need a different type of policy. And that's when we would encourage you to reach out to your local agent to walk through those, because it's not as unique of a coverage that you would need. Construction or engineering of bike trails, year-round bike depot, certain alcohol-related activities. I always like to encourage folks, if you're having a fundraiser or an event that includes alcohol, it's best to reach out to us. While the standard general liability policy includes some very limited liquor liability coverage, it's a really can be a kind of a gray area, and it's best to review that exposure to make sure that you're properly insured. Walking, biking, school bus, pedicabs, randonneering events sanctioned by USA Randonneer, and then events greater than 5 days in length. And then also international events. So international events wouldn't be covered. We do have a carve out where, if you are, let's say, close to the border to Canada, and you're going over, quick for a ride, your ride takes you over and back within the same ride, not overnight type of exposure, then that would be contemplated under the policy. Release of liability waivers. We do have a sample waiver on the website. We encourage you to have your members sign a waiver each year. We also encourage you to have your fundraising participants sign a waiver before they participate in a ride where they're paying a fee to participate in your event. For mountain bike events, so traditional mountain bike events and activities, the policy does require a release of liability waiver to be signed prior to the event, prior to the club ride, prior to the special event, and that helmets are worn for that activity. Non-competitive walking component. So the policy has been expanded to include coverage for non-competitive walking events. So if you're a club ride, if you have a club ride and you have 20 participants on bikes and 10 walking, and the route it's probably not going to be the exact same for your walkers, but that there's a route, a start and finish, then that type of exposure would be contemplated under this policy. E-bikes. So losses arising from the use of electric bikes, as defined by the Consumer Product Safety Commission, are not excluded from the policy. So that means that the insurance policy does not determine coverage based on eligibility by class, as long as the electric bike meets the definition that the CPSC puts out on their website. And I think that definition is consistent with the definitions that the league has as well for e-bikes. So this is a coverage expansion from a couple of years ago. You might recall, if you've been part of the program for a while, where e-bikes, maybe it was like class 1 and 2 might be covered, class 3 are not covered. So what we've done to simplify things is say, as long as it meets the definition that the Consumer Product Safety Commission has put forth defining what an e-bike is, the policy does not exclude it. I know that there was a question about New Jersey's e-bike law that was just updated in January of 2026, where the law is, I'm not an attorney, but just wanted to say that I believe the law treats most e-bikes like motorized vehicles, requiring licensing, registration, insurance, and training. So this policy is not going to provide that insurance on the e-bike or liability for the e-bike. But as long as the New Jersey e-bike definition is consistent with the e-bike definition that the CPSC has, then there shouldn't be any difference in coverage, for New Jersey versus other states here. Mountain biking. So I talked a little bit about this already, where we have a waiver and helmet requirement for mountain bike events, where the helmets must be worn, and then the waiver needs to be signed before each activity. Again, mountain biking would be considered, rough terrain, often single track trails designed for mountain biking, where mountain bikes are necessary, not necessarily like a gravel path that you travel on for a short period of time during your club ride. LCI and seminar coaches coverage. So the insurance policy provides coverage if you are an LCI and you're offering smart cycling seminars in accordance with the league protocols, you as an individual have coverage as well. I know this presentation, this webinar is designed more for clubs, but we did want to talk a little bit about that just so that you know that there is coverage out there under the league's insurance policy, and that if you need proof of insurance, you can always reach out and we can provide that for you. Okay, so next steps on the insurance process, if you will, is the insurance enrollment. So you will receive an email notice when the 2026 link is live. And we anticipate that being next week. So you'll get a link, an email indicating that you can renew your coverage or you can sign up for coverage if you don't currently have coverage through us. And that link will be provided when we send that notice out. A couple of comments on the enrollment process and timelines. So if you are enrolling for the first time, so you're new to the insurance program and you enroll prior to February 1st, coverage will go into effect on February 1st. If you enroll after February 1st, coverage will go into effect the date of your enrollment. For our insureds who currently are participating in the league's insurance program, so, as an example, if you needed proof of insurance today, you would come to us type of thing. So you already have coverage through this program. If you enroll prior to February 1st, the coverage will go into effect on February 1st. And then if you enroll by February 16th, because we're getting close to that February 1st deadline, your coverage will be backdated in quotes to February 1st just to avoid a lapse in coverage, given that we want to make sure that you have time to go through the enrollment process. So then obviously, if you have any questions, you can reach out to our team and we're happy to answer any questions that you have, or if you need assistance in enrolling in the insurance program. But don't go to the website today to enroll. You can go to the website today to look at the 2025 brochure, or you can look at the release liability waiver or the risk management information or information on directors and officers liability coverage, but you will not be able to purchase coverage until we activate the link, and we'll send you email notice, and that will come out the week of January 26th, which is next week at the latest. Okay, and then I have here just our contact information, Kevin. So I know you were going to bring up the other screen as well.
Yeah, I can end on that. Thank you so much, Gina. This is really great.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm just seeing that in the chat, you can see my answers, but not the questions. Please use the Q&A feature, not the chat feature for questions. And we've got a bunch. If you've got some time for Q&A, Gina, I can rattle some off. Great, and you are muted.
I was going to keep it like that. That way, everybody didn't hear my response.
Okay,
sorry,
all right.
I lost the question. So yes, I absolutely have time. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, there's been a bunch of questions about the new New Jersey law. If you're part of the league's bike advocacy Google group, you've seen a lot of back and forth from advocates nationally about what this means and what this doesn't mean. A lot of it is TBD, and we'll absolutely work with our friends at American Specialty. Yeah, I really can't speculate. We of course don't love it, and yeah, eager to see how this turns out. I'll dive into some other direct ones. If education is part of a special event, do you still need the classroom education add-on, or would it be included in the special event itself?
That's a great question. My initial reaction is if you are offering education that, and the education can be offered for a fee. Right. So you could just potentially purchase only the education. If you're doing an education fee for, to ride event, I think you are going to need both the education and the special event policy. But that's one where maybe it would be helpful to kind of understand the structure so that we are confirming and ensuring that we're not double charging you. So a quick email to us might be helpful on that one.
Okay. Could you break down what is meant by $1 million liability by 5 million per club? Like how does that shake out?
Yes, for sure. I didn't talk about that, so thank you to whoever asked that question. The general liability policy includes $1 million per occurrence and a $5 million policy aggregate, which means that for any one claim, that the policy is not going to provide more than $1 million of coverage for that one claim. But the $5 million aggregate, what that says is that you as a club can have up to 5 separate $1 million claims under the policy. So if you have $1 million claim and then a week later another $1 million claim, I mean, we might all be visiting your club to figure out, what's going on. But other than that, that's how the policy would respond there. And that limit is per policy period, and it applies separately to each club, because we don't want to be in a situation where one club has a claim and it exhausts the limits for the other clubs. So it's a per club limit. So you have that limit for your club for the policy period.
Great. Could you go back to the cost for non-owned auto coverage? And in conjunction with that, is it primary coverage or secondary?
Yeah, so the non-owned and I hired auto coverage is really based on the exposure. So we don't have a flat fee, flat cost for the non-owned and hired auto coverage. It's based on what you as a club are doing. So if you tell us, some of the questions that we'll ask for a lot of our insureds, this really isn't the case for our bike clubs because you guys are using bikes more often than cars. But for a lot of our insureds, the premium could be based on how much you're paying in renting vehicles, right? If you're just using the policy for one event, then the premium may be lower than if have exposures throughout the year. So it's going to be on a case by case basis for the actual price. And then primary versus excess, it just remember it's a liability policy. So it's providing coverage for the entity, and for the entity, it would, be your primary source of coverage in the event that the entity is sued as a result of the use of that vehicle or there's a claim made against the entity.
Great, great. Say you're going to a free city event, like a city sponsored block club or summer streets, and you're providing bike refurbishment on the spot. Do you need refurbishment or special event insurance? It is not your event, it's the city's.
Yep. I don't think you need special event insurance for that, but I would encourage you to add the bike refurbishment coverage. And the reason that you're doing that is it's a liability protection. So let's say that I bring my bike there, right? It's refurbished or, and then it's given to someone else and then something goes wrong with it. And they say, well, it wasn't put together correctly. And as a result, I'm going to sue the club. Without that bike refurbishment coverage, the policy doesn't provide that protection to the club. So no need for the special event insurance. The only time you need special event insurance is if you are charging a fee to participate in a ride.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. If I'm hosting an event and someone is riding it on a bike share bike, so they don't own it. Presumably, the municipality owns it. Is that participant still covered under your policy?
Yep, no problem with that. What we are talking about with bike share is the policy isn't designed to provide that liability protection if your club is running a bike share program.
Oh,
So
I see. Okay. Yeah, great. The words bike depot made its way into here. Could you define that for us?
Yeah, so we've had a couple of situations where a bike depot may be set up at like a train station, right? And with that, people are parking their bikes, they're getting on the train, they're coming back at the end of the day, and they're taking, they're going riding their bikes home. And so there's exposure there in terms of like the coverage for the bikes, and what if someone slips and falls in that depot area that is not contemplated under the policy. So that's what we mean by bike depot.
Okay, great.
Is
Let's
there a
talk.
better word for that? I should ask you, Kevin, in that
Oh no,
industry.
let me think about that. Let me think about
Okay.
that. Yeah, I mean that must have come from somewhere. Maybe it came from one of our orgs. Yeah. Let's talk waivers. Has the waiver changed in recent years?
Nope. So we do encourage you with a release liability waiver to always run it by local legal counsel. So the waiver that we have as kind of a starting point recommendation is it's the waiver that we've used, in all of the years of defending these types of claims, and what we have found to hold up the best. Now, that doesn't replace the need for local legal counsel to take a look at it, because there might be something specific, as example, in I'm in Indiana, so I'm going to use Indiana as an example that an attorney in Indiana would know to throw in, to put in that waiver that's really going to help that waiver stand up in court. Because while waivers are extremely important, in our opinion, because it gives us something to talk about from a defensibility perspective, there's many states who don't allow the transfer of responsibility via the waiver. And even in those cases, we can still try to slip in a portion of, assuming some responsibility for the risks associated with whatever activity the person's taking part in. But yeah, so we don't have a lot of changes to the waiver, other than, people have asked us about what about electronic waivers and things like that. And we have many clubs who put their waivers online and use that as an electronic process. And that's pretty common in today's world, right? Like when we sign up for things.
And it's okay to sign that once in a season, or does a signature need to match the date for every single riding event?
Yeah. So for your members, as long as it's not if it's a mountain bike event, the current process is, a waiver each event. But if it's a traditional bike, then it's once a season is fine, or before an activity where there's a fee charge, because the idea there is that we're having individuals who aren't members of our club participating sometimes, and so we want them to sign a waiver as well.
Right. Many clubs have different active pursuits, certainly in the winter time. What if in the off season you're hosting snowshoeing events or competitive walking or something else, hiking? Are those sort of activities covered under this program?
Yeah, not automatically covered. It's really designed to provide coverage for your bike exposure, your
Mhm.
cycling type exposures. We are always open to, talking through an exposure if it is something that is taking place.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. General rule of thumb, when in doubt, ask. And as you can see, there's going to be follow-ups, and so it's good to have the best information. Um, okay, Gina, this is my 8th year hosting this event. I'm going to throw you a curveball. Are you ready?
Okay, I
Okay.
don't know. I might have a bad
Yeah.
connection. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So Janice, thank you for this question. I don't think I've ever asked it. Are unicycles covered?
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I know.
You know what? There is not an exclusion on the policy for the use of a unicycle.
Good.
So if you have a club member who shows up with a unicycle, I don't think there's going to be an exclusion.
Love it. I might have to get one.
Oh
I'll get
my
one for
goodness,
you too,
Kevin.
Gina.
I want to see the pictures. The videos. I actually want videos.
Make sure you're wearing your helmet.
Okay. Well, my next question was about helmets. So, our helmets covered, required for all events, or only mountain biking events? Could you sort of break down when they are absolutely required and when they might not be?
Yep. They're only required for true mountain biking events. Recommended for all events from a risk management perspective, but the policy only requires for mountain biking events.
Let's see here. Yeah, a lot of questions about the number of rides in a given year, and how, if you're below this number or above this number, could you maybe go back to how the program differentiates club versus advocacy org, in terms of number of members and number of events?
Yes. So I will just maybe show it here on the screen. So 26 or fewer club rides annually, and it's a smaller club ride of 50 or fewer riders. That would be an advocacy organization. A bike club is someone who, or a club who has the weekly club ride, or
Yeah.
27 or more
And if
annually.
I'm an advocacy org and I have fewer than 26 rides, but they typically have more than 50 riders, sometimes much more, does that go into special event territory, or how would that factor in?
Yeah, they really at that point should register as a bike club. So instead of registering as an advocacy organization, they, at the, I mean, this is actually interesting. The advocacy organization at the 487 base premium, they would probably end up coming over here and falling into the minimum premium category as a bike club.
Oh, interesting. How would they, but we're assuming their riders aren't members because it's an advocacy org. Would there be something that like made them all members just by registering, or like how would that work out?
Yeah, so we don't, and as the insurance policy, it would isn't going to dictate how you register someone as a member. You could just consider them a member, right?
Okay.
When you're figuring out your bike club premium, and you would count them once. The individual is one. So Kevin might ride 27 times in a year. That's one person. It's not, you're not charged for each time you ride.
Okay. And is it still a maximum of 52 mountain bike rides a year?
Yes.
Uh, oh, a question. How do you define a club ride? Oh, that's a good one. Like I would say any ride hosted by a bike club that is a regular event and included in the membership dues that one pays to that bike club. Yes,
Yep, I think that's fair. We would also add that it's like scheduled, right?
schedule.
We know that we're going to meet on Mondays and we're going to ride, or if there's a club calendar, it's on that calendar. So that's how I would. Anything else on that, Renee?
Um, we would not consider a club ride if Bob and Joe just decided one evening to go out for a ride. Like Gina said, I think it should be scheduled to their club calendar and the club members are all invited.
Great. What about coverage for volunteers? Are they covered under the DNO rider?
Yeah, so all the policies, all of the policies that we've talked about tonight, the general liability, the participant accident, and the directors and officers liability, if you purchase that separately, all include volunteers as insureds while they're acting on behalf of the club. So, if I'm a volunteer for the club and a volunteer for my youth group, and something happens at youth group, not covered. But if it's something happens at my volunteer work for the club, then the policy would follow.
Great. And is there any cap on the number of volunteers?
Mm-mm.
Okay. How does one acquire a certificate of insurance?
Yes. So certificates of insurance, once you have enrolled in the insurance program, you can go right back online and fill out in the online portal the information that the entity who's asking for the certificate has given you, and then you'll automatically receive your certificate of insurance.
No, Gina.
Oh, what?
Those are only relative to scheduled special events.
Oh, for special events. Okay.
Yeah. If it's relative to a club activity or a monthly club meeting, those need to come to Jordan.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
It's only, special events that they can do that online.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
Right.
That's why we kept Renee around. That's why we didn't let her retire full time.
I know, right? Questions about alcohol. If the ride goes to a bar or brewery, like what are the definitions and limitations on the alcohol related policy? I mean, for years, bikes and beer have been, part of, it's been a single culture for better or worse. Could you expand on it a little bit?
I feel first you're going to have to expand on this marriage between and beer. I mean, peanuts and beer. I'm there, but no, I absolutely understand. So, with liquor liability coverage, like I said, it's really a gray area of when your host liquor liability applies. So, host liquor liability, if you are going to a brewery and that brewery, you're not paying for the individual's beer, right? They're purchasing beer on their own, and your club isn't getting a profit or a cut from the sale of the alcohol back, to the club as a generous fundraiser or something like that. Your host is likely going to apply. Would you agree?
Yes.
But if you are in a situation where you are charging a fee for alcohol, or hey, come on our beer and bike ride, and at the end you get 3 tickets, 3 drink tickets, that puts you into a different category where the exposure is not automatically covered under the policy. So we need to take steps to try to transfer that exposure either back to the entity who's serving the alcohol or secure additional liquor liability coverage. So it is just really kind of a gray area. And that's why we always say if you're having an event that's going to go through a brewery, or you're going to have alcohol, it's best just to talk through it, just so that we can provide suggestions on either transferring that risk to someone else or confirming that, yep, that exposure is already covered under your policy, or we can't transfer it, it's not already covered, and we need to do something different in terms of getting the coverage for you.
Great. And just so we make it totally clear, a waiver for rides, regardless of whether you're a club or an advocacy org, a signed waiver is required for every rider on every ride. And that can be all at once or in a season. But the point is that for any given ride, you have a signed waiver that year. Correct, Gina?
Yeah. So the idea is that in the event that something goes wrong and there's a claim against the club, we would be able to come back to you, Kevin, as the club president, and say, hey, can you give us a copy of the release liability waiver? Ideally, that waiver would have been signed within the last, year of the time of the accident. And that's for a traditional club ride. Now, the one exception to that is our mountain bike events. So if you have a mountain bike club ride or mountain bike special event, then we do need a waiver signed before each event or activity or ride. So.
Great. I'm not sure I fully understand this one. Is the GL policy written on a claims made basis? And can you fill us in on what that might mean?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love insurance
We have
people.
an insurance person in the
Let's
room.
have
Great,
coffee.
great.
Yes. The general liability policy is actually written on an occurrence basis, which means that regardless of when the claim is filed, the policy that was in force at the time of the incident is the policy that's going to respond. So let's say that today I get in the mail a lawsuit from an event that took place 3 years ago, right? An incident that I had an event 3 years ago, club ride. Yes, there was a crash during that club ride, and now someone is suing us as a result of that crash. It's going to be the policy that was in place 3 years ago that responds, not the policy that's enforced today. So if you don't have coverage today and then you purchase coverage on February 1st and you get a claim for an incident or an occurrence that took place when you didn't have coverage, this policy is not going to respond. So that's an occurrence based policy, and that's pretty traditional for a general liability policy. Claims made is a policy, and your directors and officers liability policy would be a claims made policy, which is also the traditional form for that type of coverage. But what that does is that it's the policy that's in force at the time the claim is made, as opposed to the policy that's in force at the time that the claim occurred. So yes, the general liability policy is an occurrence-based policy.
Great. Is the medical coverage primary or secondary?
Yep, it is excess over any other valid and collectible insurance. So if the individual who is injured and covered under the policy does not have other insurance, this policy will apply on a primary basis. Or if the individual who is covered under the policy has a $20,000 deductible, because many people take on a higher deductible these days with health insurance costs, this policy would fall into that group more on kind of like a primary basis. But if you have coverage that's already responding, it is excess over that, so you could use it for your deductibles and your copays or anything that's not already covered under that policy. So excess over any other valid and collectible insurance. If there is not other insurance, then it drops down and provides coverage on a primary basis.
Excellent, excellent. There's been a bunch of questions about needing an excess of $2 million in liability. For those instances, reach out to you directly, and just know we are seeing this more often than we used to.
Yep. Yep. So reach out to us and we can talk through your specific scenario and provide our thoughts on the shared limit versus going to market to find a separate policy. And just so that everybody knows, also I should share that excess liability, if for those who are in the insurance industry probably are aware of this as well, is a coverage that in today's market is fairly can be really expensive and somewhat more difficult to secure than it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And the reason for that is, as we as a society have more of these what we would call like nuclear verdicts, right, where you might look at it and think this is probably, if I were to evaluate this claim, worth $100,000, and there's a nuclear verdict from a jury or some other type of negotiations, and it ends up being a $3 million claim. And so that's why you're seeing more facilities require higher limits, but then you're also seeing carriers, insurance companies say like, excess used to be like that kind of once in a blue moon we might get hit with something, and now it's more consistently seeing losses. So it is a difficult coverage in today's market to secure.
Yeah, yeah. What is the directors and officers insurance? At what point is it necessary? So it's true that anyone can sue anyone for any reason, but um, if my club were to be found liable for something, me as the director of that club could also be named. Like when is the D&O policy necessary or prudent?
Yep. The real question, I'm going to respond with a question, which is, what are you going to be sued for, Kevin? Are you going to be sued? Yes. Are you going to be sued for a bodily injury claim? Or are you going to be sued for a wrongful act or employment practices type claim? Because the policies are designed to dovetail each other. And what one, the general liability policy says, I'm not providing coverage for wrongful acts or employment practices claims. And the directors and officers liability policy says, I'm not providing coverage for bodily injury claims. So it's a specialized coverage for the actual exposure. And so it is like the $1 million question, right? Like, which one, if I only had so much money, which coverage would I buy? Or, how do I know which one to buy? And it really is, they both provide coverage for pretty much the same group of individuals and organizations. It's just for different types of claims. I would, I personally, but I'm in the insurance industry. I believe strongly that you need both coverages as an organization, especially if you're making decisions based on, whether or not someone can be part of your club, if you are applying for grants or using grant money, or even if, when I think about employment related, so don't only think about employee employer situation, think about like that third party exposure where it's a member versus club exposure, or it could be discrimination of the FedEx driver. I mean, there's just so many exposures that could come into play. So it's a tough one. We did try to provide some examples on the website. If you click the D&O link of like when this type of coverage might be necessary, but to me, they're both very, very important.
And do you simply have to name your directors and officers, or is there an interview or a questionnaire process for all of them?
Yeah, you actually don't have to name the directors and officers because the policy provides coverage for past, current, and future directors and officers.
Okay.
So it really is the questionnaire is online, and I want to say it's probably 10 questions or less, and talks about like how many board members you have, like how long have you been in business, if you will, and then like revenue and a couple questions relative to claims. But yeah, you don't have to, like, we don't keep a file of the board members. What we would do again is in the event of a claim, we would want to be able to come to you and say, was Gina Doyle a board member on this date, or a volunteer or an employee? Because again, that policy does expand to provide more coverage for more than just your board of directors.
Liability or coverage for minors, what's the process?
Yeah, there is the coverage that we have in place applies the same, whether it is a adult member or a family membership where there's a minor involved. So excess accident medical policy and the general liability policy would technically apply to them, but it would be difficult to list them in a lawsuit as a minor.
And if I'm an advocacy org and I throw a special event but don't charge anything for it, that doesn't have any impact on the premium or the policy at all, does it?
How would you answer that?
So if they're having a special event but they aren't charging a fee?
So is it I think so if a advocacy organization was having a ride that was open to the general public,
and it's over the 50 participants, average of 50 participants, then they really should consider themselves a club and purchase insurance that way.
Okay. Yeah. On that one, it sounds like we would have a solution for that. It probably is one that we should just talk through. They can either purchase coverage as a club and have that coverage automatically for those individuals who are participating. Maybe the special event makes sense, but it's probably going to be more cost effective to go the other way and register as a club.
Great. So there's a few duplicates here. Do volunteers need to sign waivers?
We usually don't we don't have like a standing recommendation to have volunteers sign waivers. If they're providing a volunteer function that is a little more high risk, which I'm not sure, what that would be, then it's not a bad idea to protect the club, but it's not usually a standing recommendation that we have. I think it would be on a case by case basis based on what they are doing.
Great. If we were to buy a policy, would we receive a copy of it in full?
So what you receive is you'll receive proof of insurance through certificate of insurance, and then but not the full policy. We do put together a brochure that provides more detailed terms and conditions. If there are specific questions or you need a copy of the policy, we can work with the league to get approval to release that in certain instances.
Could you walk through the claims process if something does, God forbid, happen on one of our club rides? What do I do, and what does the road ahead look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's actually a good takeaway for something that we might be able to add to the website. I think we should take a note of that, just like incident response, because that is so very important. Obviously, in the event of a really, a situation that requires medical attention, then we would you would call 911 first. The claims, the process, let's say that someone is injured but not critically, or it's not emergency services aren't required. We do want to get an incident report form completed, and that form is available online, so that we can get ahead of any out-of-pocket medical expenses that the individual incurs. So that those claims are handled by HSR, Health Special Risk, and then if in that process you would complete the incident report form, you have to sign off as the club, indicating that it is a ride that took place, and that the injury took place, and then HSR would work directly with the injured party or their providers, whichever the injured party prefers, to have those claims considered. That is probably a little bit easier than if you have an actual liability claim either filed or threatened against the club. So in that situation, you would want to notify us as soon as you have any indication that someone is threatening to sue, or you think that we kind of say reasonable man that would believe that there's going to be a lawsuit, kind of that reasonable man standard, if you will. And then what we do is we receive the claim. Our claims team, our liability claims team, is in-house. So they'll review the claim depending on if it's an actual lawsuit or if it's a claim or just an allegation. That will depend on what the process looks like. It could look like we're just going to wait and see what happens, right? It could be that we need to assign legal counsel to represent the club, and it could be something in between. So each one is going to be a little bit different, but liability claims are handled here in our office. The accident claims are handled at HSR, which we have access to if there's questions, or if there are anything comes up that you can't get an answer to or need an answer to.
Great. I'm a club, and maybe I'm like I'm a club that's been around for a very long time, so I've got a lot of members on the books. Maybe some are life members, maybe some have moved away. Am I factoring in that total membership number as my member number, or should I take a survey of anyone that's even potentially going to ride in that year? How would I handle that?
I always give this answer to this question to Renee because she answers it a lot.
It should be based on the active members that ride in the club. And even if they ride once, they should be considered for the insurance purposes. But if you have members that just are dues paying members and they never participate in a ride, it's not necessary to include them in the count.
Okay, that's fair. Um, Hypothetical, and this is a legit question. I'm not trying to scare anyone. If you are a club with very few assets and you host rides and you don't have insurance and you get sued, what could happen?
Yeah. So a lot of times what happens in that situation is if you're the club and you don't have very many assets, the plaintiff's attorney is looking for who does have the assets, right? Is it the directors? Is it the officers? Is it the volunteers? Is it the ride leader? Who is it? And then those individuals could also be named in a lawsuit. And that's where having the coverage then extends down to, not down, but extends to those individuals. So you start to take on some personal liability there.
Thank you. Um,
I had one quick
please.
question that was
Yeah.
in here. Somebody had asked, what is an LCI? So a league certified instructor, is that right, Kevin? Is
Cycling
that
instructor, but
cycling
I've heard
instructor?
it certified too. Go ahead. That's
Okay, okay,
fine.
yep. So cycling instructor that is, I'm going to put in quotes, kind of certified or trained by the league.
Yeah, to teach the smart cycling curriculum. You can check out bikeleague.org. There's a whole section on how to become an LCI and what is an LCI. Yeah, I went through the process about 15 years ago, and it was a really enlightening seminar. I learned a lot. And it helped me in my early bike advocacy career for sure. So check it out. We host seminars throughout the country throughout the year. Um, if an organization suggests a route to ride, maybe they have a website of recommended routes near me, but they're not organizing an event. They're just suggesting, hey, maybe you want to check out this route. Are they are they liable? Should they have liability coverage for that?
Yeah, so I always, that the question of are they liable? In our society, we all could potentially be held liable regardless of whether or not we were actually responsible for what happened. So I like to look at it more from an insurability perspective, right? So, and a risk management perspective. So with that, um, putting a list of or rides in your city or area together on your website, to me that feels like advocacy work, right? I mean, we are bike organizations, we want people on bikes, we want them to enjoy their time, and so these are some rides that are good, and we enjoy them, and we hope you do too. So it's certainly, it creates liability for you because somebody could say like, well, I wouldn't have known about that route if Renee didn't tell me. And now that Renee told me, I'm injured, so I'm going to sue the club. So I would certainly encourage you, if you're doing advocacy type work, to have insurance for your exposures. Do I think that the exposure is high enough that you shouldn't post those? I I don't know. I don't think so. I think that's what we are as advocacy organizations, and there's risk associated with that, and that's why you're buying insurance. Anything that you can do from a risk management perspective, for example, putting disclaimers on there that you are certifying that these routes or these bike paths are safe, or you can you can AI some disclaimer language, and it will probably help you with the correct language. Will help in the event of a claim against the club. But great question.
What about like trail maintenance? Maybe you work with power tools and things like that to help build and maintain off-road trails. The use of those covered?
I'm going to let Renee answer it because I don't want to overstep. Well, I'll try. I'll answer it first. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to say that trail maintenance is considered under the policy.
Correct. That is correct, Gina. However, we consider trail maintenance like shovels, rakes, maybe some, I don't know what you call them, cutting back branches, but power tools, we really not consider that under the policy.
So light maintenance is what I would say in terms of maintenance of trails.
Got it. Yeah, a lot of questions about clubs attracting non-members, and what to do if they don't want to sign a waiver or don't want to join. I think it's important to impart the benefits of riding as a club, and one of them is having that additional coverage, and being part of the club sort of also means being a team player and supporting this club in some way. Just to reiterate, Gina, your new riders are allowed one trial run. And they're under that trial run, they are covered under the insurance. Yes, they still need a waiver just like anyone else, but after that, they do need to join. It's the club's decision if like how much they want to charge for membership, if anything. But anything to add there, Gina?
No, I think that you summarized that well. For sure, people who want to come out and give it a try, and they can ride one time, and the insurance policy would respond. Now, if that same person comes back 6 months later and rides one time, there's probably not anything in the insurance policy that's going to say that there's not coverage. On the flip side, if the same person comes back and rides each week, and you say, oh, they're not a member, and there's a claim, and we come to you and say, is this person a member? If you say no, but they ride every week, then that's where you're going to kind of get into some gray area under the insurance policy. The other thing that I would, I guess, clarify is while waivers are recommended, it is a club decision if they're signed, unless it's a mountain biking ride.
Yeah. We're wrapping up here. I love this one. How do I find an LCI in my area? Visit our website, bikeleague.org. If you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see our all-powerful map. You can plug in any zip code, any state, any city, and it will spit out a full list of all the LCIs within a radius of where you are, and their contact info, so that you can reach out and say, hey, do you want to teach my Cub Scout group? Do you want to teach me how to ride a bike? Do you want to go on this ride with me? You can also find local bike clubs, local advocacy orgs, and this is just one benefit of being a member of the league, is having that listing for all to see. Our website and our map gets a lot of traction. So always check bikeleague.org for a good club, advocacy group, even a member bike shop in your area. It's all there. I think that's it. There was a question about the brochure. The brochure is so helpful. We're wondering when that might be ready this year.
Yes, well, that is on Renee's special project list for her, retired from full-time status. And we usually have that wrapped up. Hopefully, by the end of February, we'll have that wrapped up. And the brochure for 2025 is still on the website. The rates have changed, but a lot of the same, the terms and conditions are all, very consistent. So
Great. So just to wrap up, thanks everyone. Visit bikeleague.org. You'll see the bike clubs under Take Action. There's the insurance page. Nominate your club or org for our club or org of the year. Come to the summit. Policies will be available for purchase next week with coverage going into effect on February 1st. I believe that's a Sunday. Yeah, and if you have questions, let me put up the. Do you have the contact emails? Do you want to share that one more time? Because I know there's a few outstanding questions there.
Yes, I definitely can here.
If we didn't get directly to you, I knew that there was going to be a lot of back and forth, so please reach out to Jordan directly. Jordan, your inbox is going to be awesome for the next few days. There we go.
All right. Yeah, we have definitely warned Jordan. You're going to have lots of emails after this presentation, but it's also the best way to get to know the wonderful bike clubs. So
Yep.
I'm speaking for Jordan, but she's excited to talk to everyone. Renee has never, allowed us to, for help. So
I love it. I love it. Well, welcome, Jordan, and thanks everyone for being here. And yeah, more to come. I'll follow up with a full list with a recording when it's available. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, bye.